Welcome back, Clubhouse members to Imani Clubhouse. It's me, your favorite host, Imani, and I'm so excited to announce this is the season 1 finale of Imani Clubhouse. A little sad, but I'm excited to bring even more great interviews for season 2. Without further ado, today's episode is titled How to Date After Being in a Verbally Abusive Relationship. This guest that I have here, she is a dancer underneath Ruth's Stare, Martha Graham, Perry Dance Capizio, Alvin Ailey, Sekou McMillan, Charlene Quigley, Kat Wildish, Francesca Harper, Michael Leon Thomas, Kevin Hunt, the Lachelle Monet. Thank you for joining my show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, now I want to just get right into it. It's a very sensitive subject, so thank you again for being willing to be open about your verbally abusive relationship and other things you experienced in that relationship. At what point did you realize there were things that were no longer allowed to be ignored? Like, what were the red flags that you saw after a while?
The isolation, and the isolation led into a disconnection of communication between me personally, my family, and also, in the workplace too.
Talk on the workplace part, because I know sometimes we see people, but we don't really see what they're going through, and it's unfortunate because it's like you're almost looking at someone without seeing their spirit. Was there anyone who recognized that you were possibly going through something that allowed you to possibly talk about it or be open, or were you completely isolated where you didn't even mention it to anyone, or what was that process?
In a social aspect, there was one person in particular, and she finally, approached me one day and was just like, hey, our families know each other. So she just opened up the floor, and from then on, we've been really close, and I've been able to, open up to her and be transparent about my experiences. Of course, my family knew something, but they didn't know how to approach it with me. So,
which is so interesting, because when we go through traumatic experiences, it's the family who is, for the most part, scared to say something. And it's the family that we need the most to say, okay, let me yank you out of the situation. Were you or are you unforgiving of your family for not being strong enough to be strong for you while you were at a weak point to pull you out of the situation?
I think overall, I understand, because on other ends of situations like this, I'm usually the person who doesn't know how to approach, but I still will, in my best manner move forward. So I think overall, I'm pretty okay with my family with that. I think there's one incident where I still left kind of confused as to why no one said anything. And I guess candid, but otherwise, I think I try to put myself in their position. I get it. So there's no forgiving that needs to be had for them.
Right. I know that you experienced verbal abuse. Were there any other forms of abuse that you're willing to share that you went through with your prior abuser? And if you are you able to talk about how you were able to allow yourself to detach from that person? Okay, at one point that person proposed to you. So how did you go from, I'm going through all of this, now you're proposing to me, but now I have the strength to say, you know what, none of this is okay, none of this is love, we gotta end it here.
Well, to start on the proposal realistically, right after it happened, I had to pull that person to the side, and I had to say, listen, we both know that this is not the step. And it was pretty much explained to me that that was supposed to be the moment that was supposed to make me forget everything that happened.
Okay.
So it was supposed to be a new start of some sort. And it just didn't work out for me. there was a time prior to the proposal, right, that happened. And one evening, I was asleep, and I found myself being, aggressively handled in a sexual manner. Okay. And I couldn't get myself out of it. Like, I'm small, so it's hard. And, I was asleep, so it was shocking. And, I just didn't know what to do. When that moment finally came to a close and everything, I couldn't do anything but I just know how to get up, get ready, and go about my day. So even though I was physically hurting, I was, emotionally hurting because this is someone that's supposed to love me. Like, why? And, mentally trying to figure out what's going on. I was afraid to say something, but I know I avoided going home for a while. Like, I went to my parents' house and I didn't go home for maybe 2 or 3 days. And then when I finally brought it up to the person, they just couldn't offer me anything that would have helped me heal from that. It was just kind of like, well, I was asleep too. I didn't know what I was doing. Or they used their past, like they called it their demons. Like that took over me, and I just, I'm sorry, and that's it. So by the time we got to the proposal, it was just like, okay, well, now everything's better. Kind of get over it. It happened.
You are very strong. I'm still like a little like waterwork here. I want to just state for the record, to anyone that is living with their abuser or quite frequently sees the abuser and you're sexually active with that person, that sex without consent is never okay. And I don't care how much that person likes it rough. I don't care how much that person allows you to creep up on them in the middle of the night. Without consent, it is never okay. And you know as an individual how aggressive or how intimidating you are being.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if the person is tall. I know you gave me the excuse that you're short. It doesn't matter if you're tiny, if you're big. You know the type of, you know how you're handling that person. You know what your intention is. And you, when you realize that as a person that, you know what, I'm possibly doing something, or I am doing something that is ridiculous, let me stop. That's a choice you make. And you tell yourself to stop. And then you go seek help. Okay? In your case, I'll just say that I was there for the proposal. I'll just put it out there, and I didn't know. No one knew. But I commend you for even in that moment pulling a person to the side of that strength and saying, you know this is not right. And for people who think that a wedding ring could solve anything that's hurtful like that, it only continues on into your marriage, and it only becomes worse. So I'm so proud of you for saying, you know what, you done this to me, you done that to me, and here we are in this situation, and I don't want to go through with this because you know this is not right. This is the final question before break. Did you ever, besides that one moment, did you ever sit down with your abuser and say, this is what you're doing to me, and maybe let's seek help, or let's go through therapy together, or you need to go do this before we... Have you ever done that with the person?
I was very open, even prior to that moment, because prior to that night that everything happened, that incident happened sexually to me, there was a lot of other things that were happening. Like I said, the isolation, the breakdown of communication or lack of communication that I was even allowed to have with other people. So for a very extended period of time, I was always, well, not always, but I've always tried to find ways, whether it was writing notes or whatever, little messages, or, even just taking advantage of like a certain song will come on and I'll say something about how I felt, why I felt that way, the position I felt like I was in, and now what can we do to move forward? Because I was always used to walking away from people. So now that I'm in this situation, I know how I feel about you. As a human being, but also as someone that I love, what can we do to move forward? And I was always given excuses like, well, I've tried that already in my past, so it didn't work. So at some point, I just had to find myself kind of like sucking it up in a way, and I had to mentally try to move forward myself. And when that didn't work, things got to a head. You know, we did have physical altercations. We did, you know, go through like a huge breakdown of just a huge breakdown. That's all I can really say of how things, you know, started to happen. And when I noticed that those things started to happen, I literally found myself just praying, trying to manifest everything about God, change the situation, change us both in the situation to improve or separate me from them.
Yes.